9:30 p.m. on Monday, September 28th. You might be watching this at some other time, which means it's not really live. It's recorded. It's not. If it's not live, it's Memorex. Nobody remembers that. But if it is 9:30, you're watching it live. There's our bumper. We are recording this for quality assurance purposes. We are also streaming to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We have a first-time guest that you will want to hear from instead of listening to me. Let's start a countdown to Studio 37 Alpha starting now. PJNet.TV. Good evening. I am your host, Coach Prasick. I appreciate those. Thanks for tuning in. Glad you're here. We love this. It's my privilege. It's a pleasure to sit here night after night and just have a conversation with some of God's people. Appreciate all of your prayers. Some of you may have been aware, you may have noticed last night my eye was all puffy underneath because I've been doing some lumberjacking, and a tree limb swatted me in the face, and it really, really swole up. And I assure you, there is nothing left of not only that tree limb, there's nothing left of that tree. So I won that round. Folks, what a pleasure we have tonight to welcome to the PJNet TV big screen right there. She is all the way from parts. You're just in. I just know what time zone you're in. I don't know. Stacy Leicht is with us, and Stacy is the author of this book that you see right above the fireplace up there. And Stacy, how did? Now, remember when those magicians used to come to do a show at your school? They would say, "Now, we've never met, right? Okay, we don't know each other.
No, we've never met.
We've never met." And but somehow you're on that screen. How did that happen?
Well, actually, someone that you know reached out to me through Facebook, and I guess had seen something about me being a Christian and that I had a new book, children's book coming out, and asked me if I'd like to come on the show and talk about my Christian walk and talk about my book. And I said I would love to come on the show because I had heard it was a great place for Christians to talk and have conversations.
Well, I'm glad you heard that. I don't know who led you down that jolly path, but nonetheless, we're glad you did. Now, actually, the book, folks, that is pictured behind me, which I'm doing some fine tuning on right now. There you go. Has not been published yet?
No, actually, it should be released sometime in October. My publisher has told me that with the lumber prices, that actually paper is getting hard to get as well. So although they're saying by the end of October, it could be the 1st of November, but it should come out shortly. We are very close to it going straight to the publisher and being ready to go.
Well, just looking at the cover, it's my kind of book, and we'll get to the book later. Stacy, this your first book?
Yes, it is. I have been writing this book on and off for a number of years, but I finally decided to persevere and get it done. And actually had a good friend from college, my friend Christine Trimp, who will actually be a guest of yours in October. She asked me to join a writers conference, and that ended up spurring me into finishing and completing the book. So I was excited to get it completed.
And so when you weren't writing books over the past 5 years, what you're doing this to make a living, right? Writing books, is that?
Well, I would love to do it to make a living, but I've actually been a teacher for 26 years. And I've taught elementary and middle, and right now I'm teaching at UNC Greensboro in the elementary ed department. And I'm a supervisor for juniors and seniors that want to be elementary education majors. So I get to go into the schools and watch teachers become teachers. So it's a great job.
And you've been doing that 20 years?
Yeah, 26 actually.
26.
Yeah,
You started when you were 12?
I did. I
Yeah.
was 12.
Yeah, you probably graduated from high school with a 4.0. Did you walk uphill in
No,
the no?
no, no. I
You
will
weren't
tell. I no. I would lie if I would tell you that, but
really?
no,
Now
not a 4.0, but not too bad either.
I graduated in the top 12 of my senior class.
How many were there?
18.
Pretty good. Good job.
There were
Yeah,
400
my
people
senior class
K through
had
12. I mean,
almost 800.
oh, okay. Well, I did well.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's sending me a text message there. Let me make sure nothing's wrong. No, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine.
Okay.
Sometimes something's wrong, and I get a text message from our producer.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I'm glad that you decided to write a book. Now, I'm looking at the cover. Now, I have been quite the outdoorsman in my younger
Mm-hmm.
life, and I see this guy pulling on a handle like to crank up an outboard motor. Is this a fishing trip, a hunting? What's the idea here?
Yeah. So this book came to fruition because actually the phrase "good one God" was originally said by my son when he was, I believe, in sixth or seventh grade, and I was taking him to hockey practice early in the morning, and I was doing the good mom thing where I'm driving down the road, and you know how we point out gorgeous flowers and pretty trees, and we're saying, "Oh, look at the beautiful trees God has made." Well, that particular day there was a beautiful sunrise, and so I was pointing out the beautiful colors, and it was pinks and purples and oranges, and it really truly was one of the most beautiful sunrises I had ever seen. And my son looked out the window, and normally he didn't really get too excited about the times when I was pointing out nature, especially at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. But at this point, he looked out the window and kind of pressed his little nose across the glass, and he said, "Good one, God." And the way he said it was really sweet, and he was really giving God credit for the beauty he had made. So it became a saying that our family said throughout when our kids were growing up. If something happened, we would say, "Good one, God," or if we saw something beautiful in nature, we'd say, "Good one, God." And I remember one time when we went fishing with my dad, we saw dolphins, and the kids both exclaimed, "Good one, God." So I had often wanted to take that phrase and create a book surrounding that phrase. And so I took real memories of where my mom and dad used to take our kids fishing in the Gulf of Mexico, because at the time they had a house on the Gulf of Mississippi. And so my dad would take them out into the boat. And so this particular book shows them in the Gulf of Mississippi and the marshy areas, and the children see a lot of different beautiful things in nature, such as herons and turtles. And my dad, who is the gentleman you see on the cover, teaches the kids to say, "Good one, God." And it teaches them to appreciate nature. But I'm not going to give away the end of the story, but it also teaches generational love for one another. So you have to read it to find out the end.
I see. Now, how old was your son when he had his nose pressed to the window and said, "Good one, God"?
I think he was about 8 or 9, maybe
Eight,
10.
nine.
But he was on his way to a hockey practice. He was pretty young, and we kind of go back and forth about his age at that time. But we all remember him saying that, and then all of us began to say that same motto throughout our lifetime, really, and it became something that allowed us to show our appreciation for all the things God has done.
So, and I want to go back to your previous life or prior to the book, but I'm
Yeah.
fascinated because, what if you went to the publisher and they said, "Hey, we love your material, but this title it's got to go." What's
Well, you mean the book title had to go?
Yeah? What if they said, "We can't have you yet. We got a better idea." You would have
Yeah, I
said.
guess, I would have to be open to it, but I think the whole idea behind the story "Good One God" is something that I want all children to have an appreciation for what God has created in nature and in beauty. And I think you see God's hand when you are looking at flowers and when you're looking especially at animals. And maybe it didn't have to be exactly good one God, but it needed to be something that showed the majesty of God's creation. Um, so I wouldn't have strayed too far away from a way of giving God the glory somehow.
Yeah. Well, I know that just looking at that cover brings back some very fond memories of my own on Lake Miccosukee duck hunting with my father,
Oh,
because I see the cattails and the marshy kind of environment that duck hunting is made of. You had a life before the book, though. You've always been
yeah.
a good girl, church going, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian home, and I would say I was always a Christian, but probably didn't live out my Christian life. I would say I didn't live it out loud the way I should have until I got a little bit older and started realizing what my Christianity needed to mean for me. Um, and even as I've gotten older and even into my 40s and 50s, I've even become much more bold, as you were talking about Michaela being a bold Christian. Um, I was trying to imagine what it would be like to be in her shoes and be that bold. But as a teacher, even though I was working in a public school, that was my mission field. I was trying to be bold in my Christian walk with my students. And I'm still like that, even at the university. My students know very much how I feel about my faith, and they're very aware of the book that I've written and my beliefs. Um, and so I feel like that is my mission work, and that I have to be bold. And I think that is what we need to do as Christians.
Well, if you've been teaching as long as you profess, 26 years, you went into that profession, 26 years ago, with some
Yeah.
high hopes and expectations, young and optimistic, naive perhaps. Now you've
Yes.
done it 26 years. How have things changed for you?
Oh, it's really not the same profession. I remember when I got my first job, I was teaching in Michigan in a very small rural community, very agricultural, and I had done my student teaching there. And I received my first job as a second grade teacher. And I sat down with the principal and asked the principal what my content was going to be for the year. And his question to me was, well, what would you like to teach? We just didn't have the state standards like we have now, and we didn't have a set curriculum for students the way we do now. I mean, we knew that, maybe by ninth grade you had to be in algebra or geometry, but for the little ones in elementary school, when it came to science and social studies, we were able to make some decisions about what we wanted to teach. So, for instance, I said, well, I want to teach dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are super fun for kids. So I did a whole big unit on dinosaurs. And now what's expected of teachers is very different. And you're asked to teach it a certain way with a certain curriculum. Um, and of course, we know that, prayer is not in schools. And so we are just looking at and facing a very different world of education. But the way I look at it is I still feel like it's important to be in education so that I can make a difference with students. And I love the fact that people are homeschooling or doing magnet schools or charter schools. But for me, my mission field is with the students in my classroom.
You've pointed out the change in the classroom, and no surprises there. The news isn't good, but you have stuck
Right.
with it. Thank you for sticking with it, okay? Because we can't abandon the battlefield, even if things aren't good. But I think the biggest change, and I'm not an educator, but I did well. I say I'm not. I was substitute teaching. I was an assistant coach for a couple of years. The
You're an
biggest
educator.
change, the biggest change I've seen is in not is definitely the schools have changed, no doubt about that. But I'll tell you what's changed that I can't work with is so many of these children didn't have a father figure in their life. They didn't really have a family, because how do you discipline? How do you maintain order? How do you
Yes.
how do you gain the respect for authority that is deserved when the kids have no family? I mean, that's what kept me straight growing up. Not I didn't care what they did to me at school, but I certainly cared what Dad did to me when I got home.
Absolutely. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And that has been something that has always concerned me because we know that our students come to us with varied backgrounds, and some of our students come to us with a great deal of trauma in their backgrounds. And my motto, and I say this to my students all the time. In fact, I wrote a blog about it recently. The motto that they hear me say all the time is, "There's a story in every seat." And I say that because as a teacher, if you don't understand the story behind every child's life, or you understand maybe they came from another country and they have a different culture, or they speak another language, or maybe they don't have a father, or someone in their family recently passed away, whatever it is in their life that they've dealt with that gives them that story. If we don't understand it, then they're not going to respect us as a teacher, and then they're not going to learn from us in the same manner that they would if we took the time to learn that story. So my goal, no matter what age the student is when they walk through the door, is to figure out the story first, and then I figure the learning will come.
Well, I'm thinking back to when I was in school,
Yeah.
and when I was being reprimanded. I can just imagine offering up an excuse to the effect of, "Well, I was traumatized during my potty training." I don't think that made a whole lot of difference in the discipline that I received or the treatment that I got.
Right.
So I struggle with some of the stuff because the Bible, God's word, it is an absolute standard, an absolute truth,
Yes.
and it's how do you in an even-handed way in such a heterogeneous mix, how do, I mean, you've got some real challenges, and I really admire. Uh, I am in awe of you being able to cope with that. When I was in the eighth grade, everybody had to do a science project. Mine was ballistics. So we literally went to the baseball field with several 5-gallon buckets, some of them filled with sand, some of them filled with water. And we discharged a 30-30 rifle, a 22 Magnum, and a shotgun with buckshot, and various pistols into these buckets. And then
Wow.
got the round out and showed how the round interacted with the material, the water or the sand, whatever, and
Yeah.
mushroomed. Um, wouldn't that be a great science project for an eighth grader today in public school?
Yeah, it would never happen, but you're right. It would be a great project. And yeah, they could learn an amazing amount of
Physics.
information from
It's
doing that.
physics. Yeah, muzzle velocity,
Yeah, it's
wind.
fantastic physics.
Yeah, the
But
gyroscopic stabilization of the rifling,
yeah,
and when and I loved it because I was able to teach as an eighth grader in presenting my science project. I was
yeah.
teaching because it was a subject I was interested in.
Well, and that's the thing. You had passion about it,
Sure.
that's so important.
I tell you, bear with me if you've already heard this. I have shared it, but when I was in the fifth grade, I got in some trouble, and back then we had a thing called recess where you go out and play. But the teacher wouldn't let me go out and play. And then she said, right on the a chalkboard. Now, back then, that's exactly what it was. It was this dusty,
Yeah.
remember those? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The professional football teams, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Green Bay Packers, the New York Jets, and all of them. There were 26 at the time. And I'm wondering what's going on, And so when recess was over, I had to teach where these cities were, showing them on the map and why these cities. See what my teacher did? She tricked me.
Yeah. Super impressive.
She wasn't punishing me by holding me out of recess. She was disciplining me. See, there's a difference between discipline and punishment. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to preach a minute. I'll get back to you in a minute. Just hold that thought. The purpose of discipline is correction.
Yeah.
Would you say when you saw a well-behaved child, that's a well-punished child, or would you say a well-disciplined child? There's a big difference.
No, I always say it's a well-disciplined child.
Of course. Now, let me ask you this. Is discipline, God, anybody that has an authority has to use discipline. Now, why do you do that? Well, for correction. Well, why do you want to correct them? Well, because you care about them. Mm-hmm. Because you care about them. Now, a well-disciplined dog, like mine, can go out here and run, and cars can go up and down the street, but he knows. Yep. But see, a less disciplined dog would have to be tied to a stake, wouldn't he? So, authority figures, whether it's God, whether it's your employer, whether it's your boss, or your father, your mother, they are going to restrict certain freedoms, not because they don't want you to have fun, but because they love you. And they know a little bit more. I wanted to go play out in the street, right? But my parents wouldn't let me. They just didn't love me. They didn't love me.
Absolutely.
You taught for 26 years. You've written a book.
Yeah, I did, and I love it.
Are you still teaching?
I am. I am still teaching, and I'll continue to teach and for a little while, and then my husband and I have said if my writing takes off, then maybe we'll go that avenue. But for now, I'm still loving doing both. So
or you could become a water aerobics instructor.
Yeah,
there's a fortune in that.
I do that Tuesday and Thursday morning. So at my local Y, I do love my water aerobics.
Now, for the people out there, what the heck is what is water aerobics? Why would you want to do them? Why did you want to teach such a foolish? How about Marco Polo? Well, why don't we just play Marco Polo?
Well, for one, water aerobics is great fun, but two, water aerobics is fabulous for anyone that has aches and pains and joint problems and is recovering from a surgery, has long-term back problems, shoulder problems, knee problems, you name it. And if you have someone that has experience teaching and has certification, they're going to know how to teach you exercises that are going to help you to continue to help get that joint and that muscle working again versus hurting it. So I love it because I have a group of people every Tuesday and Thursday that come, and we have a great time together. But not only are we in the water, but we are doing the aerobic part. So we're getting our heart rate up, we're running, we're jogging, we're doing jumping jacks. We're doing everything that you would do on land in an aerobic class, but you don't have the pounding on the pavement or pounding on a hard floor because you have the water surrounding you to take away some of that.
When you say in the water, are we talking ankle deep, knee deep, waist deep, chest deep? How deep?
Yeah, chest deep. Because for water aerobics, you want it to be good for your heart. So you need to have, I always tell my students to keep the water at their, probably right at chest height so that their heart is under the water, and it allows their body to not overheat when they are working at a high rate of getting their heart rate high.
Well, I have done many things in my life, Stacy, but that is not one of them, and I just don't feel the need. I really don't. I would prefer
Oh,
to go out and run, pound the
well,
pavement and swing an axe, do some
there you
lumberjacking,
go.
things like that.
Everybody has to find what they love.
Well, now this is done, you said indoors. I mean, they're an indoor pool.
Yes, you can do it in outdoor pools. There's quite a few YMCA's and pools all over the country that do it outside. But I'm in North Carolina, and I do it at a YMCA that has a large pool inside. And so the water temperature is nice and it's clean. And yeah, it's super awesome. We love it.
Well, one of the things I like about a gymnasium or a facility, an indoor workout, okay, is it takes away the excuse weather permitting.
That's true.
Now, at the gym, I used to be a personal trainer at a YMCA. It was on the second floor
Hmm.
of the building. Do you know people would take the elevator up to the YMCA?
I know. Yep.
They'd take stairs down. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of cheating, isn't it?
Well, you've heard the personal training joke about the guy who came up to the personal trainer and said, I want to, I want to build up some muscle to attract the women. Which machine should I focus on? I pointed to the lobby and said the ATM. The,
Oh, that's a good one.
it is.
Yeah. Well done.
Stacy, your book will be out soon.
Yes.
Children's book. What? Any other aspirations depending on how this goes?
Well, I have a follow up book to Good One God that's going to be called Great One God. And it's going to be coming out probably within another year after this one, I'm guessing. Um, and I also have a fiction suspense book that I am currently writing and have a few publishers interested in. That's based on true events that have happened to me when I was a teacher, a sixth grade teacher, and a parent of one of my students started stalking me. And so I have changed that to a fiction book because the parent is still somewhat close in proximity to where I live. And so for those reasons, I'm going to make it a fiction book.
And how's the relationship between you and this other person?
Well, fortunately, things are fine. That was quite a few years ago, and we haven't had any concerns. Um, but at the time, it was pretty tumultuous, and I went through a lot of fear and anxiety. But the whole idea behind the book, as it will be a Christian book, even though it's a suspense book and it's about a stalker, the whole idea behind the book is to talk about how my fear and anxiety of having a stalker was able to be, um, you know, felt God was able to take away that fear and anxiety when I leaned on Him rather than leaning on things that normally we would lean on, such as, an alarm system, which we went out and purchased and things like that,
Go beat them up.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the things that you expect to help control the situation, none of those things were working. And so I finally realized, okay, the only thing that is going to take this fear away is to lean on God. And of course, that helped.
and
So,
and I'm
um,
sure that as you were going through all this trauma, you were
yes.
praising God, saying, "Thank you, God, for giving me the basis of writing a book several years from now." Right?
Oh no, the idea of writing that in a book was actually something that didn't come to me until I was working with the publisher on my children's book, and we had to do a writing assignment and turn it into the publisher just as a little homework assignment. And I wrote a small version of that story up and turned it into the publisher, and she liked it so much she said, you really need to make this into a book. So she had me on her podcast to talk about the events that happened, and shortly thereafter I started writing about it. So I am still in the process of getting it on paper, but I hope to have it completed before the end of this year.
I was afraid you were going to tell me that as you were seeking psychological counseling, you wrote this as therapy. But anyway, but
Could happen, but at this point, I think the Lord has helped me enough. I'm good.
super. Well, Stacy, it's been wonderful just chatting with you tonight, and thank you again for your commitment to our generations of children,
Thank
and
you.
we need you there. Okay, we don't leave until it's time, because we need a soldier on that battlefield. Thanks for sharing with us tonight, and just we hope you'll make yourself known around pjnet.tv whenever you have time.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Glad to do it, Stacy. Well, folks, there you see. Yes, right there. That's this is my plywood, piece of plywood on top of two sawhorses that serves as the desk at the studio here at pjnet.tv. And boy, what a great evening it has been. Thank you for staying with us and sharing with us. And we have got more and more and more new guests coming up all the time. Go to pjnet.tv. There's a button on there. It's called Schedule, and check it out. And thank you to our associate producer, Barbara, who arranges all of our scheduling. Also, special thank you to the Duke of Hazards for taking care of PJNet on TV on Friday nights. And it's been great. Folks, before I leave, I feel an obligation to challenge you, to challenge yourself, actually, by asking yourself and answering two very simple yet profound questions. The first one is, what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? The second question is, just how long ago was that? We've had two first-time guests tonight, both changing the world in very different ways, but both require courage. So I challenge you, as you answer those two questions, to never be satisfied with either answer.